I want to talk to you if saving money feels exhausting and confusing, even when you believe you are trying your hardest. For a long time, I thought something was wrong with me because my savings never seemed to grow meaningfully. Each month I promised myself I would do better, then felt disappointed watching my account barely move forward. If you have ever stared at your balance feeling judged by numbers, you are exactly who this video is for. Before we go any further, I want you to know this channel exists for real conversations about money and life. If this perspective already feels familiar, gently like the video so more people struggling quietly can find it. I also read every comment, so tell me where you feel stuck right now with saving or spending. And if you want more calm, honest money talks like this, consider subscribing so you do not miss future videos. I am not here to shame you or sell shortcuts, because I have lived through the same frustration. What finally changed everything for me was realizing my problem was not discipline, income, or intelligence at all today. Doit. The real problem was that I never felt I was making progress fast enough to stay motivated consistently. Human beings do not quit because they are lazy. They quit because effort without feedback feels pointless eventually. When savings grow slowly, your brain interprets patience as failure, even when you are doing the right thing. That feeling pushes people to give up early. Not because they cannot save, but because hope disappears quickly. I remember telling myself I would start again next month, after my finances felt less stressful than today. Doarki. What I did not understand then is that motivation follows evidence, not the other way around for anyone. You do not need more willpower at the beginning. You need proof that your actions are working today. This is why the earliest phase of saving feels brutal, slow, and emotionally unrewarding for most people everywhere. At the start, there is no excitement, no visible win, and no identity to hold on to yet today. But everything begins to change once you cross a small psychological threshold that I will explain next clearly. Trace. Before any numbers make sense, you need to understand how your brain reacts to saving compared to spending money. Your brain is designed to prioritize immediate comfort, not long-term outcomes that feel distant or uncertain today. Spending money delivers instant relief, while saving often feels like loss without any emotional reward at first today. When I saved $50 instead of enjoying dinner out, my brain treated that decision like punishment every single time. It did not see future security. It only noticed something pleasurable being taken away from me immediately then. This reaction is not a personal weakness. It is exactly how human brains evolved over thousands of years. Our ancestors survived by consuming resources immediately, because tomorrow was never guaranteed for them back then in dangerous environments. That same survival wiring still exists today, even though our modern financial world looks completely different now everywhere. So when you try to save money, your brain quietly resists and pushes you toward immediate certainty instead. This internal conflict makes saving feel emotionally heavy, even when the choice is logically correct and responsible today. Ikibi. I used to believe ignoring that discomfort meant I was becoming disciplined, mature, and financially strong over time. But discipline alone rarely wins long-term battles against deeply wired emotional responses inside our brains every single time. The real shift begins when saving stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like a meaningful achievement instead. That shift does not come from motivation speeches or complicated budgeting tricks people promote online everywhere these days. It arrives when your brain finally receives evidence that saving creates safety instead of stress over time consistently. Do it. Until that moment, every dollar saved feels invisible, uncelebrated, and emotionally unrewarding to most people in early stages. This is exactly why so many people quit saving right before things finally begin improving for them emotionally. They interpret discomfort as failure, instead of recognizing it as a temporary and necessary learning phase for growth. I nearly gave up many times during this phase because nothing inside me felt different yet at all. What I could not see then was that my brain was slowly learning a completely new pattern forming. Jasar branch. That learning phase is quiet, frustrating, and slow, which makes progress easy to miss while it is happening. Without visible progress, your brain questions whether the effort matters, and doubts start creeping into every financial decision. I kept wondering if saving small amounts was pointless, because the balance never seemed to reward my patience. What I did not understand then was that my brain needed proof before it would fully cooperate consistently. That proof does not arrive through motivation. It arrives through repeated actions that slowly build internal trust inside. Dintis. At the beginning, saving feels disconnected from identity because you have never seen yourself succeed at it before. You are asking your brain to believe a new story without any supporting evidence from your past experiences. This is uncomfortable because belief usually follows results, not promises you make to yourself about money changes alone. Early saving requires acting before confidence exists, which feels backwards compared to most things we learn in life. That backward feeling convinces many people they are failing, even when they are actually building something important slowly. Mindtauber. I remember checking my account repeatedly, hoping numbers would move faster so I could finally feel encouraged inside. Instead, most days felt exactly the same, which made consistency harder than the saving itself for me emotionally. This is where many people quit, not because saving is impossible, but because waiting feels unbearable over time. Your brain wants reassurance now, not months later when progress finally becomes visible to you emotionally inside then. Without reassurance, doubt grows quietly, making every small sacrifice feel heavier than it should during early stages there. Itubich. I learned that this phase is not about money management. It is about emotional tolerance and patience building. You are training yourself to stay consistent without immediate rewards, which is an unfamiliar skill at first today. Most people never practice this skill long enough to see what happens after the discomfort fades away completely. But if you stay just a little longer, something subtle begins shifting inside your mindset about money decisions. That shift is the foundation for everything that becomes easier later, even though you cannot feel it yet. Eventually, I noticed small moments where saving stopped feeling painful and started feeling slightly reassuring instead over time. Those moments were quiet, almost boring, but they signaled that my brain was beginning to trust me again. Trust matters because once your brain believes you can save, it stops fighting every decision so hard anymore. This is when saving shifts from willpower to habit, requiring less emotional energy each month over the long term. Habits feel different because they reduce constant negotiation inside your head about every dollar you spend or save. Danitin. I stopped asking whether I should save and started assuming saving was simply what I did each month. That assumption sounds small, but it completely changes how future choices feel under pressure during stressful financial moments. Around this time, my savings finally crossed a number that felt meaningful to me for the first time. It was not a huge amount, but seeing 4 digits changed everything emotionally inside my mind that day. For the first time, I believed I was capable of holding money without immediately losing it again consistently. That belief did more work than any spreadsheet, app, or budgeting rule ever could for my long term. Once that belief existed, saving stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like progress toward a calmer future. Progress creates momentum, and momentum makes patience easier because you expect good outcomes eventually from consistent daily actions. I became less obsessed with the balance and more focused on repeating the right behaviors every single week. This is when saving stopped being about restriction and started being about self-respect and personal trust building. Duis. Self-respect grows quietly, but it changes how you approach money decisions everywhere else in your daily life. I noticed I hesitated less before saving because the habit felt natural instead of forced over time consistently. That natural feeling is the doorway to everything that becomes easier after the first $1,000 you save. It sets the stage for confidence, patience, and decisions that support long-term growth without constant internal struggle. By this point, saving is no longer just an action. It is becoming part of who you are. When saving becomes part of who you are, decisions feel calmer because they no longer threaten your sense of stability. I stopped feeling anxious every time I spent money because I trusted myself to recover and rebalance afterward. That trust created space to think clearly instead of reacting emotionally to every unexpected expense or situation. Unexpected bills no longer felt like disasters. They felt like problems I could solve without panic. This is the moment many people describe as financial breathing room, even though the numbers are still modest. Itsubore, nothing about my lifestyle dramatically changed, but my relationship with money felt noticeably lighter and steadier. I realized then that saving had quietly given me something more valuable than interest or returns. It gave me the ability to pause, choose, and respond instead of constantly reacting under pressure. That pause is powerful because it separates thoughtful decisions from impulsive habits built during stressful times. With a small buffer, I could say no without fear, and yes without guilt when opportunities appeared. Money started to feel like a tool instead of a constant threat hanging over my daily choices. This change did not happen overnight. It emerged slowly as trust replaced anxiety month by month. The first $1,000 did not make me wealthy, but it made me feel capable. Feeling capable changes how you show up at work, at home, and in conversations about money. I noticed I stopped avoiding financial topics and started facing them with curiosity instead of dread. That curiosity led me to learn more, not because I was desperate, but because I felt ready. Readiness is different from urgency, because it comes from stability rather than fear of falling behind. Once fear loosens its grip, better financial decisions become easier and more consistent over time. This is why the first $1,000 matters more psychologically than almost any later milestone. It marks the transition from surviving money decisions to consciously shaping your financial future ahead. Once I reached that point, numbers stopped feeling abstract and started telling a story I finally believed inwardly. For the first time, I could imagine future me feeling safe because present me stayed consistent with money choices. That imagination mattered because your brain commits when it can picture success clearly and realistically over a long horizon. Before that, saving felt like blind faith, asking patience without offering reassurance or emotional payoff during early months. Now reassurance existed, not from motivation, but from evidence created by my own repeated actions over time consistently. That evidence quieted doubt and made it easier to keep going when progress slowed temporarily during tough periods. Once doubt faded, I noticed saving no longer drained energy the way it once did each month anymore. Instead of constant resistance, there was acceptance, like brushing teeth or locking doors automatically without emotional debate inside me. This acceptance freed mental space to focus on improving income and decisions beyond basic survival over longer horizons. I was no longer obsessed with every dollar because I trusted my system to recover after mistakes happen. Trusting a system reduces fear, and reduced fear makes better choices feel possible under pressure situations in daily life. With fear reduced, saving stopped competing with enjoyment and started supporting peace of mind for future decisions ahead. Peace of mind is addictive because it grows quietly without demanding constant attention from you emotionally over time. That quiet growth changes how you approach work, spending, and long-term planning without panic reactions or guilt. I became more patient at work, less reactive at home, and calmer during financial conversations with others around. It's hard. Those changes surprised me, because they arrived before any impressive financial milestones appeared on paper yet for me. It became clear the transformation was internal first, with numbers catching up later as a consequence over time. This is why focusing only on tactics misses the deeper shift required early on for lasting change financial. Tactics help later, but identity begins forming when you prove reliability to yourself through consistent behavior over months. That proof is what the first $1,000 quietly delivers, even before returns matter to your life personally. Once you experience that shift, saving stops being something you force and becomes something you naturally protect over time. You start guarding your progress, not because of fear, but because you value the stability it creates for yourself. That value changes how temptation feels, because spending now means stealing calm from your future self slowly over time. Before this point, future consequences felt theoretical, but now they feel personal and emotionally real to you today. This is when delayed gratification stops feeling abstract and starts feeling like a form of self-care over time. You are no longer saving for a number, you are saving to protect your future decisions and freedom. That distinction matters, because numbers motivate briefly, but identity-driven behavior lasts much longer over the long term. I stopped asking how fast I could grow money and started asking how steady I could become long-term. Steadiness compounds quietly because consistent behavior removes drama and reduces costly emotional mistakes over time for most people. Those mistakes are expensive, not only financially, but psychologically, because they reinforce shame cycles over long periods of time. Gordies. Breaking that cycle early is why the first $1,000 carries outsized importance emotionally for most people everywhere. It interrupts the story that you cannot be trusted with money or long-term plans for your future. Once that story weakens, you stop treating every purchase as emotional relief during stressful moments or hard days. Spending becomes intentional again, instead of a coping mechanism for exhaustion or frustration from daily pressures at work. This shift does not remove desire, but it creates space between impulse and action consistently over time for you. Courage. That space is where better decisions live, because you can finally breathe before choosing under pressure situations calmly. Calm choices feel boring compared to impulse, but boring is often what stability looks like in real life. At this stage, growth accelerates not because you try harder, but because resistance fades inside your mind naturally. Saving energy frees attention for investing, learning, and increasing income without overwhelming stress or constant anxiety over money. This is why what happens before your first $1,000 shapes everything that follows for your financial life. Teacher, after this point, money stops being something that controls your emotions and starts becoming something you consciously manage. That shift alone reduces stress, because uncertainty no longer dominates every financial thought throughout your day. I noticed I slept better. Knowing small emergencies would not immediately push me into panic or debt again. Even minor setbacks felt manageable, because I finally had space to respond instead of react emotionally. This emotional stability is often mistaken for confidence, but it is really the absence of constant fear. Fear consumes energy, and once it fades, you suddenly have more focus available for better long-term decisions. With fear reduced, I became more open to learning about investing without feeling overwhelmed or intimidated by complexity. Before saving consistently, investing felt irresponsible because I did not trust myself to stay steady. That changed once I proved reliability to myself through months of calm, consistent saving behavior. Reliability creates confidence, and confidence makes patience possible when progress is slow or invisible for periods. This patience is what allows compound growth to work quietly in the background without emotional interference. Compound growth is not exciting early, but it rewards those who can stay emotionally neutral during boring stretches. Most people never reach this stage because they quit while emotions are still driving their decisions. They mistake discomfort for failure, instead of recognizing it as part of the transition towards stability. Once emotions calm, numbers finally begin to matter more because behavior is no longer fighting itself. At this stage, progress accelerates naturally, not through effort, but through alignment between actions and beliefs. Alignment feels effortless compared to struggle because you are no longer arguing with yourself constantly about money. This is when saving and investing stop feeling like chores and start feeling like expressions of self-trust. Self-trust compounds just like money, because each small win reinforces your belief in long-term consistency. By now, it becomes obvious that the first $1,000 was never about the money itself. It was about proving to myself that I could delay gratification without falling apart emotionally or giving up. That proof changed how I viewed future challenges, because I trusted myself to stay steady during uncomfortable periods. Once that trust existed, larger goals stopped feeling intimidating and started feeling achievable through patience and consistency. I no longer needed dramatic motivation because my identity quietly supported the behaviors required for progress. This is why the second $1,000 arrives faster, not magically, but because resistance has largely disappeared. 2. You are no longer fighting yourself at every decision, which frees energy to focus on growth instead of survival. Saving becomes the default choice, not because you are strict, but because it aligns with who you are. Alignment removes friction, and without friction, momentum builds naturally over time in almost every area of life. That momentum extends beyond money, influencing confidence, patience, and how you approach long-term commitments. I noticed I made better decisions elsewhere because I trusted my ability to follow through consistently. Tutti simkurint. Financial stability spills into relationships, work, and health because stress no longer dominates your mental space. This transformation looks ordinary from the outside, but it feels profound when you experience it personally. Most people never reach this point, not because they lack opportunity, but because they quit too early. They leave just before the internal shift that makes everything easier finally takes hold quietly. If you are still before your first $1,000, nothing is wrong with you right now. Quaint. You are simply in the hardest phase, where effort feels invisible and patience feels unrewarded. Staying here a little longer is not about willpower, it is about allowing identity to form naturally. Once that identity forms, progress accelerates because behavior and belief finally support each other fully. This is the quiet turning point that separates people who build stability from those who stay stuck. And it all begins with staying consistent long enough to cross that first psychological milestone. Binds. If this message resonates, I want you to remember that progress often feels invisible right before it becomes undeniable. The hardest part is not saving money. It is staying long enough to let your perspective quietly change. You do not need perfect habits, high income, or special talent to reach that first meaningful milestone. You only need consistency long enough for your brain to realize that saving actually creates safety for you. Once that realization happens, money stops being something you fear and becomes something you can intentionally direct. If you are still before that first $1,000, please be patient with yourself during this difficult phase. Comment below and tell me where you are on your journey, because your experience matters more than numbers. If this video helped you see money differently, gently like it so others can find this perspective too. And if you want more calm, honest conversations about money and life, consider subscribing to stay connected. Remember, the first $1,000 is not about money. It is about who you become along the way. Kay delayed.